When the holidays start to feel a bit repetitive, reach for a Sprite Winter Spiced Cranberry and put your twist on tradition. A bold cranberry and winter spice flavor fusion, Sprite Winter Spiced Cranberry is a refreshing way to shake things up this sipping season. And only for a limited time. Sprite. Obey your thirst.
Every Who down in Who Newville liked the holidays a ton. But where to get great prices on gifts, they had no idea. None. They searched and they searched for great gifts under $25. Gifts for spouses and friends and even their toddlers. When suddenly one Who shouted, Walmart has what you want, knowing they have Lego, Tree Hut, and low prices to flaunt. So they enjoy the holiday season as Who's often do. Cheering and shouting, Walmart has incredible gifts. Who knew? Find gifts they'll love under $25 at Walmart.
Hi, Nat Doig here from Weird in the Wade. I've just got a suggestion to make, which is, whilst you're listening to today's episode about the ghosts of Preston Manor in Brighton, you might want to check out the show blog at weirdinthewade.blog, because on today's blog post, there are lots of photographs of Preston Manor, both inside and out, that might help you really picture the place that I was visiting and describing and where today's ghostly stories took place. Welcome to Weird in the Wade, a podcast about all that's weird, wonderful, and a little off kilter in the town of Biggleswade in Bedfordshire and its surrounding area. If you like your history with a pinch of the paranormal and your supernatural stories with some historical context, then this is the podcast for you. Whether it's the tale of the Potton Road poltergeist or discovering what's haunting Andy's house, the story of a secret Cold War bunker or haunted museum, Old Shuck, the East Anglian devil dog, or phantom cyclists, Weird in the Wade has it all. On this series of Weird in the Wade running from Halloween to midsummer, we'll also explore one of Bedford's most shocking Victorian murders and uncover Biggleswade's Elizabethan past. There'll be a trip to the seaside to meet a devilish spook. And yes, I promise, I will at last tell you Biggleswade's great swan mystery of 1935, along with some other watery tales. Grab a cuppa, sit back, and let me take you on a journey into the weird. It's 1896, Brighton, Sussex. But we're not at the bustling seafront beneath the keening gulls, nor alongside the waves that rush across the rubbly beach, nor are we on the pleasure pier amidst the raucous crowds, sly youngsters gawping at what the butler saw amusements, whilst ladies in ribboned boaters chatter softly outside a patterned tent, waiting for a Romany fortune teller to spin them a future. No, we're a mile or so inland on the crest of a hill in the ancient settlement of Preston. Now very much part of Brighton City, Preston has signs of habitation dating back to before Roman times. There's been a manor at Preston since before the Domesday Book, and the manor house standing today as it did in 1896 dates back to 1738, where it replaced an older structure. The manor is surrounded by parkland, and in 1896 the increasing incursion of suburbia. In October or early November that year, Preston Manor House is quiet. Lily MacDonald is in the drawing room. She's one of the twin daughters of Eleanor MacDonald, née Stanford, heiress to the Stanford fortune. But I'll let 30-year-old Lily tell you her story.
It was a rather ordinary morning. We do often have extraordinary things happen at Preston Manor, but I wasn't expecting anything that particular day. I was trying a new lampshade in the drawing room, a delightful piece with a woodland scene on it. I am a firm believer that lampshades should be just as beautiful when dark, unlit, as when flooded with light. Don't you agree? Objects must always be beautiful, even when they aren't being useful. I was rather engrossed in the task. I'd go as far as to say I had quite lost myself in that woodland scene on the shade. I was so absorbed, and I do believe that is why I sensed her. And it was just a sense at first, a presence of someone staring at me, that peculiar prickle that alerts you to another. I wasn't alarmed, though. I assumed it was Martha the maid. She's a quiet one, flits about like a wren. But as I looked up, still half in my revelry at the beauty of the woodland scene, my body froze. And now I believe I know why they say your blood freezes. It's because the cold that crept over me came from inside of me, working its way outwards. It's far more usual to feel cold from the outside seep inwards to your bones, so when it's in reverse, it's extremely uncanny. I felt that coldness crawl out of my bones before I really saw her. But there she was. I knew it was the White Lady, as I have glimpsed her before. We all have. A slight flicker in the corner of a room, a skitter of light disappearing down the stairs, a faint waft of white and gold that you know is her. But this was different. It was no fleeting glance or moth-like flutter out of sight. The White Lady just stood, staring at me. She wore a diaphanous gown, which was so gauzy I could not quite make out where it began and where it ended. To tell you the truth, I was quite envious of it, because it was like a haze surrounding her. I do not believe such a material exists in our world. It came down to her feet in loose pleats and was the sheerest white, almost shimmering. Her hair was long and flowing, like she had awoken from sleep. The colour was of luxurious gold, rich and glowing, but her face was so unearthly pale I could hardly make out her features. It was as if she wore a mask of white. I was certain this was no living woman who had strayed into our home. I was frozen at first, but then the apparition surprised me out of my stupor by walking straight toward me. It was as if she was expressly here to speak with me, or relay a gift or message. As she approached me, I took a step forward instinctively, not out of bravery, but the apparition turned, walking in front of me across the room and out through the door. I followed, yes. I now wonder why and how I did this, but I'm jolly glad I did. The White Lady glided through the billiards room and approached the foot of the stairs. I don't know why, but I really didn't want her going up there and bothering my sister or anyone else who was not yet awake, so I took swift steps towards her and rested my arm about her shoulders as if to steer her away from the stairs, saying as I did, "No, you don't. Go." But my arm just fell through thin air, and she evaporated right next to me, gone, just as I had instructed. It took 2 cups of tea and a nip of brandy to stop my hands from shaking afterwards, I can tell you. But amidst my jangling nerves was a hint of jealousy. You see, I, Lily Blanche, should be the only White Lady at residence in Preston. Of course, telling Mother led to that séance happening with that Miss X woman. You see what I mean about Preston. An ordinary morning developed into an extraordinary one, which led to something so extraordinarily strange that I'm sure the history books will remember it. And Miss X with her dubious exploits long into the future.
On a dark winter's night, the 11th of November 1896 to be precise, at Preston Manor, in one very strange square-shaped room, the family gather for a séance. They are joined by a learned gentleman from the Ghost Club and a mysterious woman who claims Scottish aristocratic ancestry and the ability to commune with the dead. She was known to many as Miss X, assistant editor of Borderland, a spiritualist publication. The room has the strangest wallpaper Miss X has ever seen. It is a room lined with skin, cracked with age. It is a wallpaper made of leather and is patterned with darkly grotesque foliage, amongst which are images of monkeys. The colours of this unusual wallpaper are all muddy bronzes, blacks and burnt gold. Viewed from a distance, a kind of pareidolia turns the repeating pattern into a demon's face with a wide, sick grin. It is perfect for Miss X's work. The room is dark, womb-like. There is a gentle fire lit which casts the only light, a stuttering kind of flicker, which makes the leather wallpaper glow eerily. Miss X commands her audience to lay their hands on the table. There are 7 hands in view, and this is because the learned Ghost Club gent, Douglas Murray, lost a hand in an accident in Egypt. Some say this accident was caused by a mummy's curse. After a perfunctory prayer, Miss X opens the séance with those fateful words.
Is anybody there?
She has a Ouija board in front of her, and her hands dance across it, as if possessed. The planchette slips and slides and spells out the words.
Go away.
There is a gasp, and a log cracks on the fire. Miss X will not be intimidated, though. She persists in her questioning.
Who is here amongst us? Who are you, and why do you haunt this place?
Her voice is light and youthful. Like her face, it does not tell the truth of her age. Then the planchette on the Ouija board begins to scuttle backwards and forwards in a frenzy, spelling out the name, Sister Agnes. Miss X's fair head falls forward. The audience hold their breath.
She is here. Ah, she speaks to me.
Miss X's voice is transformed, far away, as if she is speaking to them from the bottom of a well.
She was a nun. Her name, Sister Agnes. A young and pretty girl. I can see her. Long, flowing golden hair, the envy of all who saw it. It turned the sisters in the nunnery against her, and it attracted the attentions of the religious men who should not have been tempted. Oh, poor girl. Poor Agnes. She was done wrong by a man. This is why she cannot rest. He accuses her of the foulest behaviour, but it is not true. Sister Agnes is pure of heart. Oh, she died of a broken heart, eaten up with the injustice that befell her. They refused her burial in the churchyard. That is why she wanders. 2 terrible injustices against this poor, innocent girl. We must help her. We must guide her away from here, to a place of safety and forgiveness. Agnes, Sister Agnes, do you hear me? Come to my voice and I will guide you to the light.
The séance was the talk of the family. Miss X's story touched the MacDonald sisters and impressed Douglas Murray from the Ghost Club. All were pretty certain that there had been a religious order on the site at some time before the Reformation. Nuns must have been part of that order, surely. The family was still eagerly discussing the story come Christmas. It was then that a terrible illness swept through the household, striking them down with sore throats and fevers. The house was also plagued by a terrible stench. It became so unbearable that the family en masse left for a genteel hotel on the seafront, leaving just the servants behind at the manor. On their return after New Year, the smell still lingered, and so the drains were dug up, and it was at this point that a skeleton was discovered, buried close to the house, literally below the drawing room window. The skeleton was bent double, as if it had been pushed into that hole, which was its grave. A medical man was called who declared the bones were at least 300 to 400 years old. The family were distraught. It was just as Miss X had claimed. Poor Sister Agnes had been murdered and shoved into a hole. She must be reburied. But even that simple Christian idea led to even more strangeness. The family church right next to the house, St. Peter's, refused to admit these ancient bones because they had belonged to a Roman Catholic. The family were at a loss of what to do. Then Lily's cousin John, known as Roaring Jack because of his unconventional behaviour, came to the rescue, though in a most unorthodox way. Under the cover of night, he snuck to the graveyard. He had chosen his night carefully. There was an open grave, ready to receive a new coffin the following morning. Roaring Jack deposited the bones of Sister Agnes into the hole, covering them lightly with some loose soil. The next morning, the planned funeral went ahead and the coffin was laid on top of Sister Agnes and covered up. Roaring Jack did not tell a soul which grave it was that she was placed in, and as far as we know, she still rests, unofficially, in the churchyard to this day. Welcome to Weird in the Wade. I'm Nat Doig, and as a special pre-Christmas treat, we're taking a wander away from the Wade to the seaside, yes, to Brighton. But of course, I'm not bringing you tales of haunted hotels and salty sea dogs. That would be too obvious, wouldn't it? I thought I'd lean into the festive season and bring you an episode from a classic ghost story setting, a Victorian manor house. Preston Manor House, to be exact. Don't worry, I will be bringing you a contrasting story from Prestonville in Brighton in the new year, which is one of the most bizarre ghost stories I have ever come across. But for the season of goodwill and ghostly storytelling, I thought a trip to Preston Manor with its white, grey and black ladies would make a delicious change from haunted pound stretchers and terraced houses. I was also privileged to be given a tour of the house by Dan Cox, Chief Tour Guide at Brighton and Hove Museums. A lot of this episode includes Dan's stories about the house, including his own perplexing and frankly terrifying experience there. The White Lady. The opening to today's episode is based on fact from letters sent by Lily MacDonald to her cousin John, or Roaring Jack as he was known, as well as letters and reports he shared with psychical investigators. It seems the White Lady at Preston Manor is one of the oldest apparitions in residence, as Dan explained to me.
There are a lot of stories associated with the manor, some going back hundreds of years and quite a lot just going back for the last sort of 100, 150 years, something like that. The oldest story really is the White Lady. She had been seen over hundreds of years by various different people. It was just the story became more developed really in the 19th century. All we know is that a white lady had been seen, and she's called a white lady because she was in a white dress and she had long blonde hair. That until the 19th century, that's all we knew about her. She started to be seen by members of the Stamford family. So the last person to inherit the manor was Ellen Stamford. Mm-hmm. She had two half-sisters. Her mother remarried and had three more sisters after her first husband died, including Lily and Diana MacDonald. Mm-hmm. Diana MacDonald and Lily both saw quite a lot of things at Preston Manor and either wrote them down themselves, or we have a lot of things in from correspondence from them talking to each other. But they also told a lot of the stories to their nephew, John, who wrote a lot of the stories down. And because they saw the White Lady, and they saw her quite often, they decided to do some investigation. So they employed a medium to come and hold a séance at Preston Manor. There was a huge amount of that kind of thing going on at the time, and mediums were becoming, obviously some of them quite famous and quite well known, and they did employ a pretty well known medium called Ada Goodrich Freer, who you may have heard of. Yes. Goodrich Freer said that she had made contact with the White Lady, and people who know about Goodrich Freer will be not at all surprised to discover that the lady was a nun, because it turns out that pretty much everywhere she went, she found a nun. So, yes, she said she'd made contact with this nun, and the nun was called Sister Agnes. She used to be attached to the church next door, which is an ancient church. She had been falsely accused of having an affair with one of the priests and had been excommunicated and not buried in consecrated ground. And that's why she was still troubling the halls of Preston Manor. So that's what came out of the séance. And then there was another development a few years later. People started to notice a bad smell at the manor, and they thought probably it was something to do with the drains. They employed some workmen to dig up and see if they could find the cause of the problem. They were digging outside what we now know of as the dining room and found a skeleton. Yeah, so an actual skeleton was found. It was kind of bent double and sort of almost looked like it had been dropped into a hole rather than sort of properly buried. Definitely female, A local doctor examined it and said they thought it was about 400 years old. Apparently the bones were kind of bright orange. So of course they thought, well, this must be Sister Agnes. So they said, well, we'll see if we can get her buried with proper rites in the churchyard. So they asked the priest if they could do it, and the priest said no, because she was a Catholic and this was the Church of England churchyard now, and also she'd been excommunicated, and so she was dodgy, so they didn't want anything to do with her. So the story goes that under cover of darkness, John, who was known as Mad Jack, decided that they would, under cover of darkness, climb over the walls, dig a hole and bury her properly in the graveyard and read the Catholic rites over her grave. Apparently that was done. And since that time, she has been seen once or twice, but she's hardly been seen since. So she seems at least much more at rest. The bones were clearly old. They clearly weren't modern, but exactly how old they are, don't know. And we think there may have been something like a Roman villa in the area somewhere around here. There was a Roman road along the top of the Downs, so not very far away. So it's entirely possible it could be Roman.
That's fascinating. I did read about, I think it was not Lily, but her sister, who claimed that she actually put her arm around the apparition and told it to go.
Yes, yeah.
And
So
it worked.
Yeah, absolutely. So that happened. There was a colonel whose name escapes me, who encountered her in one of the hallways and asked about her. And I think it might have been her that had, at that point, that she said, "Oh, I'm Sister Agnes." Oh, wow. So yeah.
And here's my reaction to being taken into the Cleves room where the séance happened and encountering that truly spectacular leather wallpaper. The room was shuttered with a small card table in the centre, as if waiting for another séance to begin. Ooh. Oh, this is...
Yeah. So it's an extraordinary room.
Wow.
The thing that obviously takes your notice straight away is the early Netherlandish leather wall coverings, which are just extraordinary.
Wow.
They were quite common at the time, but because leather is so brittle, it very rarely survived in anything.
So when will this
it's
have dated from?
Around 1700.
Wow.
In fact, earlier than that, so 17th century, so 1600s.
Yeah.
And it has, if you kind of get your eyes in it, almost has this weird sort of macabre grin.
Yes, I can see. Oh, and almost a nose.
Yes. Yeah,
oh,
exactly.
It does.
So it's once you see that, it's really
and then if you see the bit at the top, that could almost be like that's the top of its head, and it's got little ears.
Yes.
The two eyes, the nose, and the grin. It could be like a little demon.
It could be like a little demon, yeah, absolutely.
Or a dog.
The other thing it has on it is monkeys.
Oh wow!
So there are monkeys.
They were in the sort of mid to late 17th century, they were really into monkeys.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I'm guessing it was because of the exploration, but...
Yes.
Before we look into one aspect of the séance more closely, here's a bit of background from Dan about the history of Preston Manor.
So my name is Dan Cox and I'm head guide at Brighton and Hove Museums. We have 5 different sites and Preston Manor is one of them. So I work at the Royal Pavilion, Brighton Museum, Hove Museum of Creativity, the Booth Museum of Natural History, and here. So the first thing to know really about the manor is that it is really old. The first mention of the house was in the Domesday Book. Wow. So there's been a house of some kind here for at least 1,000 years. There's possibly Roman remains in the garden. We need to have a dig to actually confirm that. So it's possible that there's been something of some kind here for 2,000 years. The house itself now, the foundations of the house, are the remains of a medieval house. There's none of that left above ground. Downstairs in the basements, that's probably all from around 1600. Then the house was remodelled in 1738 by Thomas Weston, and Brighton people will be interested to know that Weston Road is named after Thomas Weston. It's not because it goes to the west. 2 wings were added in 1750, and then a whole new wing that we're sitting in now in 1905. It's been owned by several different people over the years. So originally it was owned by the bishops of Chichester. Then at the dissolution of the monasteries, it became property of the Crown and it was tenanted out. And then eventually one of the tenants, the Shirleys, bought Preston Manor and became the first sort of proper lords of the manor here. And then that was then inherited by the Westons, and then the Stamfords bought the manor from their landlords who were the Westons. So the Stamfords were the last family to actually own Preston Manor. So we opened again for the first time this year. We were actually closed for a few years after COVID. We reopened in April of this year until the end of November, and then over the winter period during December we'll be open for escape rooms, so you can book onto those to come and visit the manor, and then reopening to the public in the spring.
I was intrigued with what Dan had told me about the séance and what I'd read online, not least that the medium present was Ada Goodrich Freer, one of the most infamous mediums of the late Victorian period, and that's saying something. There were so many of them. I was intrigued by the timing of Goodrich's involvement at Preston Manor, it being 1896, because at this point she was at the height of her fame and success, known by her pseudonym as Miss X. Remember W.T. Stead from the episode about John Francis Hunt of Biggleswade? Hunt was that medium who meddled in murder investigations and treasure hunts. He had a kind of love-hate relationship with W.T. Stead and his publication on spiritualism, Borderland. So I'm pretty certain that John Francis Hunt will have corresponded with Ada Goodrich Freer under her pseudonym of Miss X. You see, she was joint editor of Borderland with W.T. Stead. Within 3 short years of Miss X's séance at Preston Manor, she was in disgrace and not long after fled the country to the Middle East. I do wonder if Ada Goodrich Freer deserves a reappraisal in the 21st century. It seems many in the 20th century wrote her off as a fantasist and fraud, some saying that she was gullible and taken in by a well-known womanizer within the Society of Psychical Research, the SPR, whilst others implied that she was the one doing the seducing of cow-eyed men. Obviously, the truth is going to be far more nuanced. Very little is known about Ada's background. She told many stories. It seems that the truth of it is that she was from a professional working class family in the Midlands, in Rutland, part of Northamptonshire today. And when I say professional working class, I mean her relatives and her parents and grandparents all had working professions. They weren't labourers. Her father was a vet. Now, this isn't quite what a vet is today. To be a vet back in the 19th century, you didn't have to have gone to university, for example. But it was a skilled job, no less. And one of her grandfathers was a wheelwright, and one of her brothers became a butcher. So all good, solid, working, professional jobs of the 19th century. Ada was orphaned by the age of 9, however, and she was brought up at a young ladies' boarding school in Yorkshire, which was run by one of her aunts on her mother's side, an Anne Adcock, where she excelled in academic subjects. Ada was clearly an extremely clever and inventive and industrious woman, and it seems that even after leaving school, this aunt, Anne Adcock, was living with Ada in London because the censuses show that they were together boarding in the same house. Ada became quite influential in the SPR and, of course, with W.T. Stead, who said he could not have published Borderland without her. Becoming assistant editor to a national publication like Borderland was no small feat for a woman in the late 19th century. And it helped that the Victorians had the rather sexist view that women were closer to spiritual matters because their nature was softer and more open to the spirit world than men's. So for Ada, one form of sexism helped her conquer another form. Many biographers scoff that Ada Goodrich Freer concocted a fanciful backstory for herself, claiming to be descended from Scottish nobility and also to being the first woman admitted into the Royal Society. I don't think any women were admitted into the Royal Society until the 20th century. But few query why she may have done this. I assume it was to open doors which would have otherwise have been closed to her. Once she was through that door, it didn't matter so much if her backstory was found wanting, because by then she would have demonstrated her abilities and be permitted to stay on her merits. But Ada also clearly got some kind of kick or had a psychological or pathological need to invent herself, as she continued to do this throughout her life. Similarly, much is made of her youthful appearance and how she could pass herself off as much younger than she was, far into advanced age. Again, I'm unsure why this is so heartily held against Goodrich Freer. As a woman in my 50s, I can totally understand why Ada may have exploited that youthful appearance. The invisibility of older women in society is a very real and damaging thing. And also, in Victorian times, being a woman over 30 and unmarried would have made her prospects of gaining a husband far more difficult. I am a little in awe of her that she managed to convince her future husband, who was some 16 years her junior, that she was in her 20s when she was in fact in her mid-40s. Passing herself off as much younger once her reputation was besmirched was a sensible survival tactic, though she had been doing it for most of her life. One accusation against Goodrich Freer was that she plagiarised the work of a Hebridean folktale collector, and this does seem to be true. But criticism that she relied too heavily on the ghost stories and folktales of servants when investigating haunted stately homes seems to be motivated more by snobbery of the time. There are, though, some threads throughout Ada Goodrich Freer's work on spiritualism and ghostly goings-on that do seem a little dubious. She was very fond of finding nuns in places where no nuns had lurked before, not just at Preston Manor, but also at the case which was her undoing, the haunting of Belechan House in Perthshire, Scotland. Friend of the show Wayne of Eerie Edinburgh podcast has a great episode on Belechan House, which I'll link to on the blog. But in a nutshell, the ghostly experiences reported from Belechan House during Victorian times related mainly to the sounds of bangs, footsteps, and ghostly dogs. The history of the house pointed to an awful act of barbarism where a nephew who inherited the house killed his dead uncle's beloved hounds rather than care for them. This was said to lead to many of the creepy canine encounters reported at Belechan. But when Goodrich Freer arrived with 35 other investigators in 1897, just a year after her visit to Preston Manor, a nun was seen for the first time at Belechan by Miss X. A sceptical person might say that Ada Goodrich Freer was just a charlatan who introduced nuns to her narratives because it helped her keep track of the stories she was making up, and because who doesn't like a ghostly nun? A more curious mind might wonder why she had an affinity to nuns, whether she thought she was seeing and communicating with long-dead nuns, or was pretending to. Why did she choose nuns? If there is a small chance that she was seeing actual ghostly nuns, could they be attached to her rather than the places she was visiting, whether psychologically or spiritually? Sadly, she often got the historical details of her nuns wrong as well. She preferred them to have long flowing hair, when in fact a nun's hair would have been short and covered. Her downfall came because of a poor review to a book authored by the Marquess of Bute, which Ada had contributed to extensively. The review criticised Freer's preference for anecdote over evidence, and this use of servants' recollections rather than her own, or even that she passed off servants' experiences as being hers. The SBR turned their backs on Goodrich Freer, though they admitted that the work that she had carried out on the use of crystals for scrying and second sight was exemplary. Ada Goodrich Freer worked as a medium briefly, but was again denounced as a fraud. She escaped the scandal by travelling to the Middle East and Jerusalem, where she met and married an American, and after some years of travelling, settled in New York, where she died in 1931. But there is much more to Preston Manor than just that séance and the White Lady. Some of the more modern ghostly encounters are actually more chilling and perplexing. As we head to the adverts, just a reminder, you can get Weird in the Wade advert free in the UK by subscribing to BBC Sounds and everywhere else in the world by joining Weird in the Wade's Patreon. Just search Weird in the Wade Patreon or follow the link in the episode description to find out more about how you can get advert-free episodes. And for those of you listening to the ads, please remember that by listening to them, you're supporting the show. Thank you.
All right, listen up, nacho chips. Quiet down, crispy potatoes. This is the moment Velveeta's been preparing you for, and you're not about to crack under pressure. Today's the day to go all in on the drip. Velveeta's Heat and Eat Queso is the MVP of any game day spread, so stick by them, and you'll be golden. Now get out there and make delicious history. No tailgate party is complete without Velveeta.
Hey, this is Bill Simmons from the Bill Simmons Podcast, here to tell you that Michelob Ultra, the official beer partner of the NBA, is bringing NBA fans closer than ever this season with chances to win great prizes, including courtside tickets. Enter now at michelobultra.com/courtside. Michelob Ultra Courtside 25 to 26. No purchase necessary. Open to U.S. residents 21 plus. Begins on October 1st, 2025 and ends on June 30th, 2026. Multiple entry periods. See official rules at michelobultra.com/courtside for free entry deadlines, prizes, and details.
The Canadians. Here's one of the strangest stories Dan told me on our tour. We were in Charles Stanford's bedroom with a large 4-poster in it and north-facing windows. The room had a cool, light air to it, and the school children visiting could be heard outside playing.
This is now another guest room, and there's a great story in here from, I think, about 15, 20 years ago. A couple were looking round when it was open, and they were taking photographs, which you weren't supposed to do in those days. The cupboard in the corner used to be open, and there was a glass sheet over the front of it with a mannequin inside with a military uniform.
Yes.
They were taking pictures. They got home, they put their pictures on their PC, and they noticed in the mirror a reflection of a young boy about 10, 11 years old in a blue satin clothes with gold buttons down the front and long blonde hair. So they phoned up and they said, "We're really sorry, we've been taking pictures, we weren't supposed to, but we think you might be interested." So they sent the picture in. Our IT guys had a look at it, couldn't find it had been tampered with in any way. So they said, was there a boy who lived here? It looked like 17th century clothes, so in that kind of period, was there a boy who lived there? So we did some research and discovered that yes, there was a boy who lived here. So phoned the chap back and said, well, we've done some research and we found out in the 17th century there was a boy who lived here. He died when he was about 11 years old, and his name was Anthony Shirley, at which point the man dropped the phone in shock. Once he picked it up again, he said, "My name is Anthony and my wife's name is Shirley."
Oh, that's fantastic. What a story.
Yeah.
Oh, I've got goosebumps. And this, I mean, obviously we came in here in the
dehumidifiers.
The dehumidifiers on, but this room feels even colder than the still room.
Yeah.
And I mean, I know it's I'm guessing north facing.
Yes, yeah. This is the northwest bedroom.
Yeah, I'll go and stand over here. I'm sure I won't be picking up anything that's interesting when I listen back, but you never know. But yeah, it's amazing how we're in the same house, and all of the rooms have got a different feeling to them.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I'd say this room feels a little sad, but you told me that story, but I think I felt a little sad when I walked in there anyway.
Yeah,
and the story, although sad that the little boy died, is also one of those, wow, that's an amazing story.
It's a great story.
Another story which made me shiver is this one from Ellen Stanford's room. This is a lovely room. I declared it my favourite, and that I could have slept in this bedroom with its view of the trees and the turning circle of the carriages outside. The room was both cosy and light.
We've also got the photographs of Veer, who was Ellen's grandson. So Mad Jack had one son called Veer, named after his grandfather. He died at the age of 26, just after the First World War in 1920. He was gassed in the trenches and he had tuberculosis. So he died. So he was the last of the Stamfords. So that's partly why Ellen decided not to leave the house to Jack.
No.
However, a few years ago, there was a group being shown around, and everyone left the room apart from one member of the group. I think they were Belgian students. And the room steward on this floor heard a scream, came rushing in and said, "What's the matter?" And the boy said, "A man shouted at me." And he said, "What man?" He said, "A man shouted at me and said, 'You mustn't be in here, get out.'" And it was him. And pointed at the picture of fear.
Yeah.
So who knows? Maybe he was offended that people were in Granny's room, and because Veer, and despite the fact that Ellen didn't get on with John, she loved Veer and Veer loved her, so they got on really well.
Oh, and that also, that whole idea of are ghost sightings time slips?
Yes, absolutely.
Oh, I mean, that would be just such a poignant story. He's here visiting Granny and he sees a boy in here in weird clothing.
What are you doing in here? Get out of my granny's room.
Get out of my granny's bedroom.
Yeah.
And the little boy sees him and it's like, wow, yes.
Yeah.
But perhaps the most perplexing tale of all is this one that Dan experienced himself.
In one of the maid's rooms, I made the bed and I locked the room. I was the only person in the house, locked the whole house up and went home. Next morning, I was the first person in. I unlocked that room, walked in, and the bed I'd made the night before was all messed up.
Wow.
And no one had been in. So
was it like someone had actually slept in it?
It looked like that, yeah.
That's amazing. How did you feel?
I thought. That's interesting. Some people have felt intimidated here. We have some members of staff who won't work here. There's a lot of people who have experienced something called the angry man, who growls in people's ears, and as possibly one of our members of staff got shoved in the back as they were walking across Charles's bedroom. I've never felt anything like that here. I've never felt intimidated. I've never felt scared or anything like that. So I don't know.
Would you say you believe in ghosts?
I'm pretty cynical, but there have been some things that I can't explain. So I'm not completely closed off to the idea of it.
No.
But who knows? I mean, the bed thing is difficult to explain.
It really is.
It's often those two maids' rooms, that's where people experience things. They seem to be the most haunted.
I looked forward to visiting the room where Dan had encountered his mysteriously unmade bed. The room where this happened is one of two large, beautifully flowery wallpapered rooms with large fireplaces in them. They are not your typical servants' quarters. Dan explained to me that once it was just Ellen and Charles living by themselves at Preston, they gave over two of their spare rooms to the two most senior women servants. I'm guessing a housekeeper and the lady's maid. And why are you not hearing Dan explain this to you from the very room it happened? Because I did record in those two servants' rooms whilst at the manor. Well, it's because this is how the recordings in the rooms sounded. No, it is a lovely room.
Yeah.
I love the wallpaper.
Yeah.
I really couldn't subject you to that whirring noise. It came and went during the recording, but it never went completely. I am 99% sure that it is environmental noise, but what I can assure you is that humming or hissing sound in the rooms was not loud whilst we were in them. I did not think any background noise would be an issue. Certainly nothing as loud as is picked up on the recordings that you just heard. I was using two microphones and both picked up that loud, whirring, hissing noise. The sound faded when we left the rooms. Other rooms did have humidifiers in them, but they gave out a very quiet whir which did not interfere with the soundtrack at all. So it is a bit of a mystery to me why the recording from the servants' rooms are troubled by such loud background noise. Now, the sound could be part of a rational explanation for why the rooms are associated with activity or feelings of unease. Is there some kind of electrical device which is interfering with not just microphones, but our perceptions? It would be really good to take an EMF reader into those rooms and see what comes up. Because, like I say, being in those rooms and recording and chatting with Dan, I had no idea that the background noise that was clearly there was that intrusive. To my ears, it was just really quiet background. And yet, on the microphones, as you heard, it's really, really intrusive. A less sceptical explanation might be that these rooms are haunted, and whatever is haunting them doesn't like being recorded, or to the contrary, wants to make themselves known. Interestingly, the sound really ramped up after Dan and I spoke about the servants being well treated by the Stanfords. And it wasn't the only peculiar thing that I noticed either after my visit or whilst I was there. One other strange thing was the smell that I noticed at certain points within the house, and Dan noticed as well. First of all, we noticed it in Ellen's bedroom and along the stairs, and then in the old kitchen.
Yeah, absolutely.
And this feels different again.
Yes, and this is Ellen's room.
Yeah, this feels... I mean, one, you've got a different smell in here, so I'm guessing you've got something in here that...
I don't know, actually, but yes, I know.
I can smell citrus. Yeah. I'm just looking now, because you don't normally have...
No, I don't know where that's...
stuff to make stuff smell, do you?
Not normally, no.
But yeah, there's definitely a strong smell of, like, citrus and... No, this is a lovely room.
It is.
And it definitely did smell of
It did,
citrusy kind of perfume when we came in.
I'm not sure I can smell it now.
No, I can't either.
Who knows?
I have to find out what was Ellen's favourite perfume.
Did she wear citrusy kind of... Yeah.
Yeah.
Who knows?
It was very uplifting, wasn't it? It was a nice smell.
It was a nice smell.
Now, at one point, I thought that I had identified what the scent was and that it was coming from some herbs on display in the kitchen. But their scent was very faint, and what I could smell upstairs was unmistakable and strong. I'd love to know if others have ever smelt this citrusy perfume at Preston, and I do wonder if Ellen had worn a perfume of a similar scent. My least favourite room in the house was the old blue spare bedroom, which is now a study, with a desk and cupboards and a sturdy fireplace.
So this room is now dressed as a study, but it used to be the blue room, so it was a bedroom.
Oh.
Lots of people have experienced things in here, voices, disembodied voices. There used to be a wardrobe in the corner where the desk is now, where apparently people would put their dresses and things, and then they would get them in the morning and they'd be cut up into diamond patterns.
Wow.
Yeah. And in this room, I think also someone saw a disembodied hand climbing up the bedpost.
I did hear about a hand.
Yes, I think that was in this room. We tend to tell the story in the next room because there's a bed there, so it's easier for people to visualise, but I think it actually happened in this room.
Oh, I can imagine this as a blue room.
Yeah.
And it feels quite cool compared to the morning room, and yet we are still facing the sun.
South. Yeah, we're on the south side.
Is this part of the house the same age as...
This is 1738.
This is 1738.
Bit,
But yeah, it's also got an incredibly still feeling in here.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I can understand why people might have that kind of reaction in here. Yeah, I don't think I was quite happy to stay in the morning room, and I would have, sat down and worked in there, but I wouldn't want to work in here. It feels just a bit too still.
Yeah, I do know. Yeah, I do know what you mean. Actually, yeah. It's interesting.
Yeah. Do we know who the blue bedroom would have been?
It was a guest room.
A guest room.
Yeah.
It's funny how they always, if you go to these houses, it's always the guest room where everyone says, "Oh, it was haunted." Yeah,
absolutely. Although there are stories in all of the rooms.
Yes.
So this is Charles's room. The only story I really know of in this room is that one of my colleagues was walking across to unlock the door and got shoved in the back.
Oh,
so this is where that happened with the angry man.
And this was Charles's room.
This was Charles's room. Yeah.
Yeah. This feels this feels different. Like I could sleep in here. You know.
Yeah.
It feels like a bedroom.
Yes. Yeah.
Where that one didn't.
No, but I guess if there was a bed
Yeah,
then that would help.
Maybe it would help it feel a bit. No, I still think it would be too still. I've only ever come across that kind of atmosphere once before, and it was staying in a place in York that was called the Chamber of Trembling Madness.
Wow.
It was supposed to be haunted.
Okay.
I did actually experience weird stuff, but it wasn't anything to do with, I don't think, ghosts.
Right.
But the atmosphere of the place was so still. And yet you were right in the middle of York, and you could hear the bells ringing, at the Minster.
Extraordinary.
Yeah, it was, and I couldn't work out how they'd achieved that atmosphere. I do hope you've enjoyed this tour around Preston Manor and exploring its ghost stories. There were plenty of ghost stories that I could not cover in this episode due to time, so it would definitely be worth visiting. Now, before you rush to book your visit to Preston Manor, just to let you know that it does shut over the winter, so you'll have to be patient and wait for the spring to see this splendid house for yourself. There are photos and links on the show blog, as always, weirdinthewade.blog. But if you are into escape rooms, over the winter, this haunted manor house becomes the site of escape room puzzle events, which sounds utterly thrilling to me. I cannot thank Dan Cox enough for his time, his expertise and his storytelling. I had a wonderful time being shown around Preston Manor, and Dan went above and beyond what I'd asked for, which was literally a 30-minute interview. So thank you so much, Dan, for your time and expertise. I'd also like to say a huge thank you to Emily Elle Watts for playing the parts of Lily MacDonald and Miss X, Ada Goodrich Freer. Thank you so much, Emily. Now, if you'd like to hear more ghost stories from Preston Manor, some of the ones that I couldn't fit into this episode, and you'd also like to hear advert-free episodes, head over to Weird in the Wade's Patreon. Just search Weird in the Wade Patreon and you'll find it. And on that Patreon page, subscribers get bonus episodes every month, access to advert-free episodes, and events and news and behind-the-scenes information about Weird in the Wade. For less than the price of a fancy cup of coffee, just £3.50 a month, you get all of that and the satisfaction of knowing that you're supporting Weird in the Wade to keep going. So head over to Weird in the Wade Patreon, where this month's bonus episode includes the extra ghost stories that I didn't have time to include in this main episode. Thank you so much for listening to Weird in the Wade. Weird in the Wade is researched, written, presented and produced by me, Nat Doig. Theme music is by Tess Savagir, and all additional music and sound effects are from Epidemic Sound. Thank you so much for listening to Weird in the Wade. Weird in the Wade is researched, written, presented and produced by me, Nat Doig. Theme music is by Tess Savagir, and all additional music and sound effects are from Epidemic Sound.
Hey, Ryan Reynolds here, wishing you a very happy half-off holiday, because right now Mint Mobile is offering you the gift of 50% off unlimited. To be clear, that's half price, not half the service. And Mint is still premium unlimited wireless for a great price. So that means a half day, yeah? Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. New customer offer for first 3 months only. Speed slow after 35 gigabytes if network's busy. Taxes and fees extra. See mintmobile.com.
Hey there, I'm Susie and I'm the host of Beyond the Ferns podcast. Each week, I take you beyond the headlines into the stories that linger long after the news fades. From chilling true crime and unsolved cold cases to paranormal encounters, cults, and extraordinary survival stories. It's a little bit of everything for everyone. Whether you're drawn to mysteries, fascinated by the strange and unexplained, or simply love a good story, I focus on the truth, the details, and above all, justice for the victims and survivors. So buckle up, things are about to get a little scary. Follow Beyond the Ferns wherever you get your podcast. Thanks, y'all.